Hey everybody, I'm William,
I'm Kina.
and we are the
We're the
Nerdy
Nerdyweds.
Weds. And today we are doing March,
February and March wrap up.
February and March wrap up.
We're getting it in for the end of the month. You thought it wasn't going to happen till June.
Yeah, April's gonna be a crazy wrap up, but more on that in the next one. But yeah, let's
We're just going to jump into it, right?
jump into it
Because we got a lot to go through.
This is quite a few games to go through, and it was a pretty light month compared to what we were doing before we kind of got too busy in our lives to sit down and play as many games. We used to play games almost every night.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. Because you were like, you got me with the light month because we played a lot of games. Granted, they were all over a weekend for Escape Winter Convention.
Yeah, but they count.
Of course they count. We played them. So I'm going to start with Quacks because that's the only game on the list that I've played before and we own it. All the other games were new games that I played at the con. So with Quacks, it's a risk your luck game. You have a bag that you are pulling ingredients from and placing it in your pot, which is your game board, and you're doing that without trying to blow up, because you blow up if you get too many cherry bombs or cherry blossoms, whatever they're called. But it's a really fun game, 2 to 4 player.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that
And
game.
I really enjoyed playing it at the convention because the person who had it had an upgraded version of the game. They had a lot of cool upgraded components, so that was fun.
I love upgraded components. So my first one I want to talk about is actually my least favorite of the games on the list. I'm approaching it a little differently. I'm going to go from least favorite to most favorite on the list. And that game is Diamonds. Diamond is I believe, 2 to 4 player trick-taking game similar to Spades.
Okay.
But with some other elements thrown in where you're collecting these jewels and you have to get the jewel to the front of your safe. And then you do something, you play a certain kind of card, and you get the special effect to be able to put them behind the safe. Until they're behind your safe, they're free for anyone to steal from you. And you can steal jewels from other people's safes depending on what kind of card you played. I'm just not a big fan of the trick-taking kind of genre of games, the mechanic of that. I might change my mind if I ever meet one that appeals to me, but so far I haven't met a trick-taking game that has appealed to me.
Well, I'm not going to do any type of order for my games, but since you just talked about trick-taking, I will talk about the trick-taking game that I played, which was Brian Boru. And that was a bit of trick-taking, card drafting, hand management, area management. They had a little bit of everything thrown in. So it might change your mind on trick-taking since it's just one element of the game.
It's one of the mechanics of the game,
right? Not the mechanic. And it is where if you win the trick, then you win control over a town, which in turn can get you influence over a region. And that's the goal in the game, is to have the most influence. And you can have that for winning favor with the church or winning political favor. It was a really good game because it was very dynamic, and it was more than, like we just said, more than one mechanic going on. So it made you feel like you had a good chance of making some moves in this game and getting ahead.
It did look cool. I got to see a brief portion of it before I went off and wandered somewhere while you were playing it. It looked like a cool game.
Mm-hmm. It was.
You were very engaged.
Yeah.
So my next game is Don't Rock the Boat. It is a children's dexterity game, and how I ended up playing this game was I entered into the audience of the game show, the board game show at Escape Winter. And what they do is they give you a playing card when you enter the room, and if they call out the card that you hold, then you go up and you compete. And the first thing was a trivia challenge. past a certain type of airspace. Above what altitude you enter a certain kind of airspace. And I got almost the right answer. Wasn't quite the right answer, but it was almost the right answer. Because I'm pretty familiar with aviation and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they ended up putting us in, the two people who got the answers the closest, they put us head to head in a game where we had this little ship with these little weighted miniature penguins and different like treasure chests and other things, and we had to place a piece on, and the other person had to place a piece, and then whoever tips it over loses. And I lost. I don't feel like I should have, but I did. We're not getting into this. It was fun. It was a fun little dexterity game that had some things going on with it. Just a goofy little dexterity
game. It sounds fun. I wanted to come to the game show, but I was in the middle of another game. So that's the thing. That's
was that game.
Yeah,
the last one you just talked about.
But the next time that we go to the convention, I'm going to make sure I don't get into a game when that's going on, because it sounded like so much fun. And since you talked about a dexterity game that's good for kids and the whole family, I'm going to bring up my game that I think fits that criteria as well. And it's called Canopy. So Canopy is a fun game where you are using a flick that represents a airship, and you're using it to hit 3D trees. And you're trying to release the birds, little tokens, that are on top of the trees so that you can free them and get them to safety. And your goal is to get them to safety, and after the end of 6 rounds, to have more birds than the poachers. And it is a co-op game, and you have to, and it's a dexterity game, and you have to know when to flick lightly and when to flick a little harder. And the first thing I did with my first flick was knock it at the very edge of the table. I went all She-Hulk. But I had to rein myself in after that. It was quite embarrassing. Each time after that, I just kept saying in my head, like us, light as a feather, stiff as a board, to make myself flick a little bit lighter. But very fun game.
Immediately when you said that about the gauging how much you need to flick, I immediately thought of you going bam and just going
That's
full
what I
ham.
did. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, the same thing you did with Crokinole and had a piece fly across the room.
Yeah. Was that me or was that you?
No, that was you. All right. My next one I'm going to talk about is actually Mansions of Madness. Mansion of Madness is a co-op 1 to 4 player game where the game itself is controlled by the AI, if you will. You can use a tablet, a laptop, anything like that, and the game is narrated by the laptop. The enemies are controlled, and the players are searching for clues on how to defeat the big bad at the end of the crawl, if you will. And the mansion is set up with these tiles, similar to like games like Gloomhaven, is the one that really came to mind playing Mansions of Madness, where instead of an AI kind of script that each of the players is in control of, this one uses a laptop or a tablet to control how the big bads move and what kind of damage is being dealt out to players and different effects. And you got to worry about like your sanity levels and your damage that you've taken and what kind of equipment do you have, weapons, spells, what have you. It's a fun game. I definitely want to sit down and play it again.
I definitely want to play it again. I want to play it where it feels more co-op, where everyone has a say in what's going to happen, especially a say on what they want to do with their own character.
Yeah.
So since you talked about a co-op one, I'm going to also talk about a co-op one. And that one is going to be a game called Witness. And it is a 4-player game. You have to have 4 players because each player is playing one of 4 roles. And it's based off of Blake and Mortimer Belgian comic series. Never heard of it, so hopefully I'm getting that right. But that's what it's based off of. And what you're doing is working together to try to solve a mystery or crime. But there's some restrictions on how you're sharing information. You're doing that in the telephone-like style. You remember that game of telephone when you're whispering to each other. And that's what you're doing in this game. And there are even rules of who you're whispering to and when. And each round, as you're sharing the information, you're trying to remember what was told to you before and adding that on to what you know now. And it can get a little bit complicated, but it's definitely fun, especially at the end when you're trying to put all of the pieces together to solve a mystery and crime. So
that does sound like fun. That does sound like fun. Yeah, definitely want to try that one.
Mm-hmm.
So my next game would have to be Flamecraft. Flamecraft is I want to say worker placement kind of set collection. I'm not really sure how to define this game, but it was super adorable. You have these little shops, and you're adding these dragon cards to the shops to get like different effects and score points and do all these different actions on the board. It is super cute. The dragons have these cute little names, like the people we were playing with who were teaching us how to play the game. Her favorite one is a little dragon named Hot Dog. And all of them are adorable. Every single one of them. Some of them are food-based. Some are like crystal or flower-based names and stuff like that. And they're all, like I said, super cute. And it is a fun little game.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that game. It was super cute. So speaking of super cute, my next game was the cutest. It's River Dragon, the Giant Edition. And it is 2 to 6 player, and it's so adorable. Like, the table presence is insane. Like, anyone who walks in the room that doesn't stop and look at that game, they're just broken inside.
I was gonna say dead
just
inside.
Broken inside. But the objective of the game is to get your meeple to the other side of the board using different sized planks. And it sounds really easy, but you have other players who are getting in the way of that. And then you also have cards that you are playing that you have to follow what those cards are. So you have to be careful about what you're using and when, because you're using a combination of cards that allow you to do certain moves and to use certain planks or set stones, but also cards that will stop the other players, and they are doing the same thing to you. So it is a very cute and very fun game, and I wish that we could, get this game, but it's on the list for later because it's, what did you say it was on eBay?
It was about $300, I want to say.
Yeah, so.
That's for the Giant Edition, but if you're not getting the Giant Edition, I can't imagine trying to play that on a little board.
Not after playing the Giant Edition, no.
My next game is Istanbul. Istanbul is a 2 to 4 player worker placement game where you are moving your workers around. They're represented by little discs. And you're kind of leaving them behind as you move through the board. And on each of the spaces, you can choose to stop and take the action on that space. And there's 16 different actions available on the board. In order to take the action, you actually have to leave a puck behind when you move the next turn. It is a fun game. It's a game of merchants and buying things, selling things, turning in sets of things to get more things, and there's a lot going on and a lot of different avenues to collect the rubies. And once once players achieved a certain number of rubies, then they win the game. And it's got so many different moving pieces that it really makes for a fun game. And I really enjoyed it. It's definitely one I can't wait to play again.
Okay, yeah, that game was one that had been on my list for a long time to play. So getting to play it at the con was so awesome, especially since it lived up to the hype. It really is a great game. It has a lot going on, and it's really fun. So this next game that I want to talk about, it also has a lot going on. Not as much as that. Not even close. But still very fun. And it's called Alhambra. Alhambra is 2 to 6 player. It is tile placement, set collection, hand management, a little bit of all of that. When it's your turn, you have certain actions. You can do one of 3. And this is the gist of it because I only played it once. You can take money, take and place a card and place a towel. That's the gist of it. It's probably called something different in the game when you look at the rule books, but that's what I remember doing. And it was a really fun game that I want to add to our collection so that I can give a better overview of it and do justice to the game, because I just remember having so much fun playing that game.
Yeah, that's the thing with a lot of these games. Actually, most of our list are games we only played one time. So the next game I want to talk about is Clover. Clover is a fun little, I think you play it 2 to 4 player, right? I think it can be played 2 to 4.
You think it can be played 2?
Possibly.
I think.
But it might
I think
need.
it needs. I think
three or more.
At least.
The gist of Clover is that you are trying to arrange a set of words in a way that they can connect to each other. Like the word Valentine and bear, for instance. If you have those 2 words and you have them sitting next to each other in this Clover, you write down the word romance or something like that. And the other players have to rearrange the tiles, and they got 4 words on each corner of these tiles in a way that matches the way that you would originally put them in. And I really think that it's a fun little game. Not only do you have the 4 tiles, but you have to add a random tile that gets mixed into the group. So the people choosing how these get arranged have a tile that's unrelated to the one that the 4 they're trying to place. It's just a fun game that I think has a lot of replayability.
Yeah, it's a good party game too, and we are definitely getting it because we want to compare it to the recent game that we got.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name.
Crosswords or cross numbers. Yeah, it's around or something.
Yeah. So more to come on that because we'll be doing a comparison video for it. But it is 3 to 6 player.
3 to 6 player. Okay.
The next game I want to talk about, it is also 3 to 6 player, and it's called Cave Paintings, and I think that is also a good one. That's good for a party. What you're doing is you are drawing, and other people are guessing what you drew, and you're guessing what they drew. But you have to draw with your fist. You have to draw like this. And you only have like 10 seconds to draw. And it's over, you do, I think, 6 drawings or something like that. And then the person with the most points at the end wins. So very simple game, but quick because you're having to draw quick. And the way that you have to draw, even if you're a great, if you're the best artist, you're not going to be able to
draw like this. Yeah.
And in 10 seconds. So very, very fun game. And
it looked like a lot of fun. I actually was watching you guys play it, and you'd taken over for one of our friends in the game. It reminded me a lot of Telestrations, but with a 10-second timer and drawing with your fist like a caveman. That looked cute.
It was cute.
My next one is going to be Sentinels. Sentinels of the multiverse, or yeah, I think it's
Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Sentinels of Multiverse. It's a co-op game, 2 to 4 players, where you are teaming up with your fellow heroes. You have these different heroes that have different powers and different cards and stuff that they can use in the battle, and you're fighting against bad guys that show up to the battle depending on the scenario you're playing. And you got the big bad guy and stuff, and you're trying to defeat them. It is a fun game. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to explore the Sentinels of the Multiverse a little bit more. It's definitely up there. Like, pretty much all the games after a certain point on my list are, I really want to play this game again. And I think this is the start of, I want this game in my collection list. The games I've mentioned before are games I really want to play again, but this is the start of, I really want this game on my shelf.
I definitely want that game on my shelf. That is one that when we went to the flea market, I was tempted to see if they had it and break my own rule of being on a budget and getting it. It was that fun.
It was a good game, yeah.
So the next one that I want to talk about is Cascadia. It is 1 to 6 player, and it's kind of like a puzzle. So it is a tile placement game and a drafting game. You're drafting tokens with animals on it, and you are placing the tiles of terrain, and you have to be strategic about it, because if you place similar tiles together, the same terrain, you're going to get more points for that. And then when you place the token with the animals on it, you are going to get points for a certain amount in a certain area based on placement, and it adds a certain level of strategy to it.
Okay.
And it is one that, speaking of wanting to add to the collection, that is one I want to add to the collection, and definitely want to play again, because it was a lot of fun. It's one that I think that people that we play games with would really enjoy.
Definitely. It looked like a fun game. I've seen videos of it. I've never gotten to see it or play it myself, but it definitely looked like a fun game. Mm-hmm. My next one is A Feast for Odin. I went to a game store, and this is the only one, the only one in the February that I played not at Escape Winter. And went to a game store in Houston, Texas, where they happened to be having board game night. And check out your local board game stores to find out when they're doing a board game night. But somebody had A Feast for Odin. I was like, that is a game that has been at the top of my list of games to play. Mansions of Madness, A Feast for Odin are two of the games that for years I've had on my list. I really want to play them. And I really enjoyed A Feast for Odin. It has a lot of moving pieces. It's a worker placement game. My only criticism is it can kind of feel empty even at 4 players.
Really?
It's like you're not obstructed enough from taking actions because somebody else took an action that you wanted. There are other options. There are so many other options that you sometimes just can't get in each other's way because you're not playing the same game as them. They're going to be the hunter whaler. You're going for exploring, or you're going for something else, and there's no element of getting each other's way. I can see some players, especially in the beginning, when your options are kind of limited by your resources, that they could possibly get in each other's way, but they have spaces available for you to get around that. Okay. But overall, great game. I really enjoyed the Tetris kind of thing going on and collecting the pieces to put on your tableau to fill it up. The option to take on more, like take in build buildings to get extra points if you can fill them up. And then take entire islands like the island of Iceland or some of the other islands that you can take on and try to fill their tableau full of these pieces as well. So there's a lot to do in the game, and I believe it is actually able to be played single player, but it's probably 2 to 4 player. And it was a really cool worker placement game set in kind of Viking time without any combat. It's great.
That's one you wanted to play for years, so I'm glad you got a chance to play it. This next one that I'm going to talk about, it was the last day of the convention, and we were just trying to get in some more games, some quick games, before we had to GTFO. So the game is called Time's Up, and it is a team versus team game, and it's like a game of charades, but with a lot more going on. So you're doing 3 different rounds, and then in the first round you can give clues, verbal, physical, whatever type of clue that you want to give. You're not restricted, and the person guessing can only have one guess. Then the next team goes. When it comes back, you start the second round. In the second round, you can only give one word clue. And again, the person guessing can only give one guess. If they get it wrong, you move on to the next card. As you're going through the cards, they can pass. The third round, this is where things get tricky. You cannot speak. You can only give physical clues. So Time's Up, really fun game. A great party game, especially if everybody's a little bit tipsy.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I have Clank Catacombs.
Okay.
Clank Catacombs, if you ever played Clank, it is a deck builder game where you start out with a certain number of cards. You can only have 5 cards in your hand. You play those 5 cards on your round for good or bad. You advance your little meeple through the dungeon, and you collect up any goodies you get along the way. Then you can use the cards to purchase new cards that you add to your deck. Once you've added everything in and you shuffle it all up again on another turn and everything, your deck becomes more powerful as you go, better. There are ways to eliminate bad cards from your deck. There are ways to bring in more good cards. And with Clank's Catacombs, it's not a set board like Clank is. Clank Catacombs, you got these tiles and you place them down to advance along a dungeon, but it's not a predictable or set path. In fact, you get to manipulate the tile of how you want to place the new tile. And you just go through and you're trying to collect up a treasure item to get it out of the dungeon before the dragon that's listening to you clank around in the dungeon gets upset enough to come out and attack you. And it is a fun 2 to 4 player experience. Dungeon crawler, very light dungeon crawler with a really good deck building mechanic.
Okay, yeah, that was one that I really enjoyed. We have the original Clank in our collection, and then doing Clank Catacombs, I think our first day of the con, if I'm remembering correctly, really set the tone for me for the convention, because it was a fun game that I really wanted to play again before the con was over, but we just got in so many games that didn't have time. It was one of the hot games, and it deserved to be. It was right where it needed to be.
It was, and diving headfirst, as soon as we came into the convention and got our badges, we went straight to that table and started playing Clank. And it, like she said, it was a great way to set the pace for the convention.
So the last game that I want to talk about is a game that I play tested for an independent game developer. It was a game called Food Truck, and it is a game where you're basically trying to get ingredients to create recipes for your food truck and end up with the most high value one at the end of the game. So it was a fun game. There was a lot of math involved. So one thing that I did appreciate that he had was on the back of one of the cards or rules or what have you, he had a quick way for you to, add up all of these different scores and points that you get as you're creating your recipes. Because I didn't want to do math. Out of all these games that I played, this was on the last day that I did Food Truck. I was not trying to do math. It was a game that I wanted to play from the beginning of the con, and we were right down to the wire on that last day, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to play it. And then I saw him sitting there, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to actually be able to do it. Because I like to play test at least one game at a convention. Yeah. And I was able to do that, and it was fun.
Oh, that's awesome. My next game I want to talk about is my favorite game, bar none, that I played at Escape WinterCon, and that is Wonderland's War. We've already done like a video about the Kickstarter that, as far as I know, the Pledge Manager is still open. So I haven't checked in about a week. I haven't checked. So it might have closed by now, but if it is still open, check out our Wonderland's War video if you want to know more about that game. But it is a 2 to 4 player game with a similar mechanic to Quacks at Quedlinburg. She discussed Quacks at the beginning of this episode. You're pulling tiles or tokens from a bag. You're displaying those. You're getting new tokens as you go, and it's just a very cool, fun, beautiful game on the table. Great miniatures if you can get a hold of the deluxe version of the game, and if you can get a hold of the upgraded token pack. That's tactily is the way to play a game like Quacks, because she talked about the upgraded components for Quacks at Quedlinburg, because that guy had tiles similar to these for Quacks, and it just brings a whole new element to the feel of the game.
It does.
And when you reach into the bag and you hear those clack 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 of those things hitting each other, it's just
very satisfying.
It's very satisfying.
I enjoyed playing that. When I saw those components with Quacks, I had to play. So I'm really excited for what you're going to get from the Kickstarter or late pledge, because you did get the deluxe, right?
Yes, I did. I bought it, and I can't wait for it to arrive. It is a $230 game, so it's at the top end of the games that we own. It's pushing up towards Scythe level of expensive, but I hope that it gets on the table quite a bit and everybody enjoys it.
And I'll actually get to play it, because I did not get to play it at the convention. 4 of the games that you played, I didn't get to play, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
All of the rest I did get to play, and I'm only saying that because there's a thing that we're going to do. We're copying Beans and Dice podcast. If you guys have not seen or watched your stuff, go check them out. They are also on YouTube, and they do have a 5-minute video explaining how they're keeping track of their top 20 games that they play this year. It's not the top 20 games of all time, just the ones that they're playing this year. So I don't know if you're at 20 yet. You may be, but I'm definitely at 20 based off what we played during the convention. You might be, based off what we played at the convention, the 2 games in March, and then what we played in January. So next time, not next time, but in May.
March yet.
I know.
Okay.
I'm discussing this. In May, we're going to have a metal board behind us, and it's going to have our top 20 games so far of the games that we've played this year.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty cool. I really like that with Beans and Dice. I like a lot of things they're doing. Taking a lot of inspiration from them, and that's one of the things we're taking from them is is that top 20 for 2023 or X number of year. So that's pretty cool. So I think that covers February.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we've got
March.
March.
So I'm going to talk about what?
Oh, I'm just thinking the list for February was very extensive.
It was, but March is not. So there's that. I guess there's balance in the force. But for March, we played Zombicide. This was a game that he had been talking about for years. He's saying that you're gonna love this game. You love zombie games. So we gotta get it and give it a try. And when we did, he was right. Oh, dang it. I'm not supposed to say that again. I said it enough already on a past video. But yeah, I agree.
It's true.
I agree with him. It was a really fun game. It's one of those games that is a blast but brutal. And it's co-op and 2 to 6, I believe.
2 to 6, yeah.
And you are working together to get supplies and to get to the exit. But it's hard because these zombies are continually coming in. And if you don't have the right weapons to get them, they're going to get you before you can get them. You're going to get got before you can get. Y'all know what the saying is. But it's a really fun game and one that we've played 2 times already since having it. And I'm ready to play it again. Like if we can get that on the table for game night.
Oh yeah, yes. It's definitely got to be set up on a table. It's got to be preset. It's a game that takes some doing. It's not Memoir 44 level of doing, but it does take some setting
Maybe
up.
we can set it up on the dining table.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so that way it's already set up in there. If nobody's ready to play it yet, we can do our icebreaker games in here until we get enough people who are wanting to play it.
Wanting to get murdered by zombies, yes.
Yeah, they're going to get murked.
Gonna get murked. All right, last but not least, another game that we really enjoyed, and it's another game in the pandemic series of games that we have been really having a lot of fun with the pandemic series. I know we're kind of late to the game on that one, and we were late to the game. I think we own the original copy of Pandemic
for years.
For
years. Like 2 years.
At least. Without ever once setting it up and playing it. Which is ridiculous. Especially for how fun and just how much fun it can be to play that game. And how brutal that game can be. Because this version, Make the Cure, is a dice-based version of Pandemic. And it's as brutal as its predecessors. You have a board that's very simple. It's just a bunch of circles that represent different areas of the world. And you roll these different colored die that represent different diseases to get spread out amongst the world. And yeah, bad things happen, and we all died.
I suck at rolling dice. I mean, I always say that. So why I thought this would be a good idea, I don't know. It was fun. It is fun. I want to play it again.
Yeah.
But I don't see it ending any different. He says that he thinks that it will. I'm like, not if I have to roll.
Our first couple times playing Pandemic, after we got past the beginner rule set.
There's no roll of the dice in that.
There's still a deck of cards that are trying to murder your face.
You can't take me to Vegas, obviously.
She's got the Will Wheaton curse.
Yes.
You definitely got the Will Wheaton curse.
That's something. The dice curse, something.
That's why she doesn't want to play D&D.
No. I'll
Well,
watch.
I think that covers our February and March, and she was right. We did get caught up.
We did it!
Because she cheated.
Why did I cheat?
February, March in one video?
There was only 2 games for March. Why would we do a separate video? Hey, I'll take it. I did not cheat. There's nothing in the rules that saying that we could not do that. We're in April. We should do that so we can get caught up. And we are now caught up. If there's a game that you want us to do a separate video on so we can go more in depth in it, let us know in the comments. Give us a reason to buy the game.
Yeah.
Alhambra.
Clank Catacombs.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
Wonderland Wars,
We've
but I already
already
bought
got
that one.
Clank Catacombs. Brian Boru.
So that's all we have for this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time.
Stay nerdy.